Now on Rockin' Manooch with Jimmy B on Fox Sports 910.
Welcome back, everybody. Rockin' Manooch with Jimmy B. Howard Balzer is our guest. He's been covering the NFL for 963 years, and he is
give or take, Jimmy.
Yeah,
it's about 950.
Okay, 950. Yeah. Fair enough. Howard, welcome as always, pal. How are you today?
I'm doing well. What was that long ago movie by either Carl Reiner or Mel Brooks? What was it? The 1,000-Year-Old Man?
Yes, that's it. Yeah.
I starred in that movie. Absolutely. Yeah.
That movie came out like 1968, Howard.
He's the best. Howard's the best. Hey, I guess the Zaven Collins story is pretty interesting here. Why don't you fill in the listening audience?
Yeah, it was got poked in the eye, jabbed in the eye, whatever you want to call it, and had to leave the game and stayed out on a block. I watched the tape of the play, and you really couldn't see it happen because he was kind of really close in quarters with the left tackle, Chuma Edoga, who was playing instead of Tyron Smith, and it was pretty bad. He said at the time, and he talked to the media today and said that. They said, the doctor said he'd never seen anything like this. He said it was more to the muscles above the eye than the eye itself. And then he said, I went into the locker room and I looked in the mirror and I really did not like what I saw. And so, but he said it really wasn't painful. It was just, it was just that he couldn't see anything. And he had blurred vision, for a bit. He wore a patch for a couple days. Now he's been practicing the last couple of days with a visor, and he believes he'll be ready to go. He also mentioned, though, guys, I'm really curious what's going to happen. He also mentioned that Edoga guy, the blocker for the Cowboys, also got Dennis Gardeck, who has a black eye, just not as bad as Zaven had, and his eye was really bloody. But he said that only happened like in the last couple of days as the time is going on. But he says it's just itches, it's not that painful and all that. So he says he's going to play. I'm going to be real curious when the NFL fine list comes out Saturday, if this guy's going to be fined for this, because the officials obviously could not see it. And that happens a lot of times. If you don't have the right angle,
right.
It wasn't like it was out there in open space and the guy just, pushed his hand. They were pretty close to each other. So, yeah, it was tough one from him, obviously, because it happened in the third quarter and he missed a bunch of snaps. And the funny thing is, real quick, when Nick Rallis, the defensive coordinator, was asked about all the injuries in the defensive line, injuries at linebacker, Josh Woods missing a couple of games to start the opener. He said, "What's that like trying to figure it out?" And he says, "Well, what I say to the guys is because he basically said that you never want to use the word injury." So he calls it changing shoes. I lost the shoe. What are we going to do now? And so I thought that was a weird way, to handle it. But hey, they're going to go into this game. It looks like Collins will be able to play. Jonathan Ledbetter hasn't been in practice the last couple of days with what is listed as a finger injury. So that's another hit on the defensive line if he can't go. So it'll be real interesting what this team does, tries to attempt to accomplish on Sunday against the 49ers team, guys. They have won 13 consecutive regular season games. Mm-hmm. And the crazy part about it is that streak started last season when they were 3-4. And guess who else was 3-4 at the same time?
Would that be the Cardinals?
The Cardinals.
Yeah. They're 2-11 since then, and the 49ers are 13-0. So obviously, if anyone thought the Cowboys were going to be a challenge, certainly the 49ers truly will be, and beat the Cardinals last year in 2 games by a combined score of 76-23. And in both games, the Cardinals did not score in the second half.
Wow.
But the 49ers have been doing that to a lot of teams. I actually charted this, guys. In this 13-game winning streak, they have outscored teams in the second half 186-59. 59 points in the second half in 13 games. 6 times they shut out teams in the second half. And in the fourth quarter, it's 82-26. that they've outscored teams in the fourth quarter in this streak. So obviously the Cardinals have their hands full on Sunday.
And Howard, if you look at the fine training that one Brock Purdy had through his college and high school days, if you look at his scoring percentage in reference to those games, he's 8-0 as a regular season starter now.
Right.
You see him progress from that second, third, fourth quarter. He might start slow, but if you look back to last year and this year, he starts to kick in and the offense starts to kick in to see all those points in the third and fourth quarter.
No question. And he protect and the main thing, certainly with a 49er team like this that has all these weapons on offense, a real good offensive line, and obviously a defense that's just outstanding, is it's basically just don't make a mistake. And so far this season, by the way, guys, I know it's only been 3 games, but there's only 4 quarterbacks in the NFL that haven't thrown an interception. Guys who started the season opener. Only 3 have not thrown an interception. Brock Purdy, and by the way, Joshua Dobbs are 2 of those 4.
Wow.
And does Pat Mahomes have just 1 interception? Does he have an interception yet? I was wondering.
Yeah, he does have 1. He does have 1. I believe he just has the 1. I'm fairly certain, of that. So yeah, so he's like, and on the outside, all people do is question Brock Purdy. On the inside of the 49ers, and when you talk to coaches and teams that talk about him, all they talk about is how good the guy plays and how in control he is.
Yeah.
Which leads to the point about not making mistakes, not having interceptions, delivering the ball where it should be delivered, making those decisions quickly. And obviously, when you have a Christian McCaffrey and you have George Kittle and Brandon Ayuk, who didn't even play against the Giants, and Deebo Samuel, who hasn't practiced this week, so that'll be something to watch in the next couple of days. He hurt his knee and ribs in the game last Thursday against the Giants, and so we'll see if he's able to go, because obviously he's a big part of that offense. Ayuk has been back in practice this week for the 49ers.
Now, you alluded to the resiliency that Coach Rallis has as a defensive coordinator.
3 minutes.
And I looked at Dante Stills, and I'm looking at him and going, who? Dante who?
Yeah.
And then, you look at guys that are plug and play. Cameron Thomas came in, got a big sack there for Zaven Collins. But did they activate Stills that morning or Saturday before the game? When did they activate him?
Well, no, he's been on the roster. So he's on the 53. He's not on the practice squad. So he was not active for week 1.
Okay.
But then with LJ Collier getting hurt in week 1 and going on IR for week 2, Stills was active for that game and played in the week 2 game against the Giants. And then, of course, they end up losing Carlos Watkins to an injury, and Stills was active again and had more snaps in the game last week than he did the week before. So he's been on the roster, but boy, they've been shuffling guys on that defensive line. And of course, a real interesting story, and we'll see if he's able to play this week, especially with Ledbetter potentially
2 minutes
out, is Roy Lopez, the local product, Skeet High, who he was surprised that he was cut by the Texans. He injured his hamstring in the second preseason game, but he was working on it, recovering. And I mean, this guy started 29 games for the Texans. Now, granted, it was a different coaching staff his first 2 seasons. And then the Texans, put him, waived him injured and the cut to 53. And then they reached an injury settlement. He came back here to Arizona to continue rehabbing. And now the Cardinals have signed him to the active roster. And man, I'll tell you, he's above the moon. I mean, his dad is coaching at Desert Ridge, and he's back with his, he's here where he grew up. He's home with his family. And I was talking to him today. He said, I said, maybe this is something you don't even dream about, but maybe you do dream about it, but it doesn't usually come true. And he said, absolutely. You couldn't have written the script any better. So
1 minute, 1 minute.
If he can get up to speed quick enough to, get some snaps in that game on Sunday, because, they just don't have many healthy guys right now.
All right. 30 seconds. Do the Cardinals cover the 14-point spread? That's what we want to know.
They're 3-0 so far. The spreads are Howard.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah,
they are. And I should maybe do that here. I do a little bit on a station that I'm still on back in St. Louis called the H-Bomb.
Uh-huh.
And I've been doing it for 2 decades. And what we do is we pick games that have 6.5 point lines or more, and drop the bomb on the favorite and say they're not going to cover. And of course, what you hope to happen is have the underdog win the game. Well, guess what? I'm 2-1 so far this season, and my 2 wins are picking the Cardinals to cover against Washington, and I picked them last week to cover against the Cowboys and got the outright win. So I've decided I'm riding that one until the Cardinals, disappoint me and don't cover. So I think they've got a shot. Obviously, as I just pointed out all the numbers, so much depends on – they'll play them. So, they played them not badly with a different team. Certainly last year, it wasn't bad at halftime of those games. And in the second half, the 49ers just pulled away. That will be the key in this one because, the Cardinals, so far, they've been outscored 30-7 in the fourth quarter so far this season. And they haven't been that good in the second half. So they'll have to do that, I think, for them to be able to cover. The 49ers have scored at least 30 in every game this season, and going back to last year, scored at least 30 in 6 consecutive games.
Wow.
And so that's just how good, obviously, this team is, in all 3 phases.
So Howard just dropped the H-bomb on this show as well. Thank you, my brother.
There we go.
Thank you, my brother. You have a good weekend.
You too, guys. Take care.
There you go. Howard Balzer, PHNX. You can follow him on Twitter or X at HBalzer.